So I work here in my studio. I live just upstairs, which is handy, and my husband works next door in his studio. I had a classical training in Italy, and afterwards I had a really strong need to travel, so I would set off for months at a time with a travelling studio of plasticine, making kind of little maquettes and sculptures of the people and customs that I came across, which I then bring back here and make into bigger sculptures to exhibit. About 6 years ago I had a severe head injury in Mongolia, so that meant that everything came to a really abrupt halt. Then when I started working again, my work had kind of changed a bit somehow and become more involved in the kind of deeper, more animalistic nature of humans and how we all express that. Since then I think of my whole practice kind of differently. Maybe it's a bit more explorative, maybe I'd like to think that it's a bit more explorative. So I trained as a cabinet maker a few years ago, which was part of that exploring, which introduced me to wood, and that's taken over my whole world a bit, as you can see from my studio. My subject matter is largely based around humans and trees, and more recently birds. I'm interested in viewing them as symbols, or maybe as representative characters of certain types and feelings. And one of my favourite things about wood are its flaws. So I suppose if you're working on furniture or making something structurally, then flaws can be a bit of a problem. But in sculpture I feel that they can bring a piece to life and remind you that wood is a completely alive thing in itself, or was. And it's similar, there's a kind of connection with working in charcoal on drawings, where charcoal is essentially burnt wood, and in the same way can be unpredictable, fuzzy or precise, or hard and soft, or hard or soft, which I quite like and try to really explore with the Song to Keep drawings. I tend to think of drawings as very much their own thing, as opposed to like a preliminary or a sketch towards a sculpture. So sometimes I might start with a sculpture and that will evolve into several drawings, or the other way around. My work is predominantly sculptural, but drawing plays an important role. I don't think of drawing as preparatory to something else, but work on drawings independently and alongside my sculptures, and sometimes the two kind of inform each other. One of the things people ask me quite a lot is what it really feels like when I'm working, which is kind of hard to answer, but I think there's a sort of weird meditation thing that happens when you get really into a piece, and I wear headphones most of the time, so the outside world can sort of fade away a bit, which is blissful.
I was born and raised in South Africa and moved to Scotland after I was married with my husband, who's from the Highlands. So A Song to Keep is my first collection of poetry. With this collection I have tried to create layers to the poems. The first layer is really about context, and for this I've used the experiences of my own life. The next layer is really concerned with either metaphysical or spiritual concepts. So I've explored themes of suffering and loss and trauma, but also hope and courage, resilience and redemption. The third layer is really about introducing tone to the poems. My family was very musical. My grandparents were jazz musicians, and so family life was really saturated with rhythms of jazz and blues. But I've also used the influence of the Scottish lament, which creates this very nostalgic tone. So the final layer is about texture, and for this I've been lucky living in the Highlands, because it has this dreamlike quality to it, which is seeped into the poetry with no real constraints of place or time, so that the poems really appear to me like dreams. He was told to get a grip of something solid to aid his ascent, for the mountain is old enough to offer descent, and the elements will work against him, for they are always on her side, and his humanness will fail him. On that he can rely. He was told to reach out beyond his limits for some permanent thing that would hold on to him, that would anchor him in. Except the more that he climbed, the less likely it seemed that there ever was such a thing, permanent or solid or anchoring. And the summit grows ever higher, opaque and austere, closing her eyes with no mercy to spare. Still he never turns back, and he never gives in, for the aching of man is a most permanent thing. Welcome to everyone who's joining us for this launch event of A Song to Keep. And Gemma and I are here having a chat about the book and how we started our collaboration.
There was a nice moment actually when Ollie had given me a poem, one of her poems, was kind of written on a scrap, and I kind of pinned it up in a corner of my workshop because I found it really useful. Anyway, she got in touch and I sent her a photo of where this poem was, and then the kind of flow between us began, which was really interesting as a kind of conversation, because it sort of underpinned lots of other things that were going on at the same time. I think.
I realised that of course you were an amazing artist. I thought, well, just try my luck and see if you may be interested. And lucky enough, she seemed to like my poems anyway, and so we decided to give it a go. The conversation evolved because we almost started to speak the same language, because I remember some of the drawings arriving, and it seemed as though they were so relevant to what I had been thinking about for the next few poems.
To balance in with that, every now and again a poem would arrive. It was like having a conversation where suddenly there's a little debate, and you find your own way of understanding two subjects that you have very different values on, but you can...
Yes, different perspectives.
This is why it's lovely seeing them as a book, sending each other poems and drawings. We didn't really chat much.
No,
we just talked through the drawings and the poems.
Right.
And so it was really enjoyable working out all the bits that we had processed differently.
Apart from inspiring me to keep writing and creating poetry and having that conversation, they really added another dimension to the poetry. I mean, I think the drawings are just so beautiful.
It's so interesting collaborating, because both of us normally squirrel away our stuff. And, there was certain few that I just really remember reading for the first time. This is a whole another language that I've just never been brave enough to even try and speak. So it was such a privileged place to be in, to be allowed to respond. It was really special. So it's been quite a weird old year to be going through this process in. It's been amazing how enjoyable it's been and how rewarding it's been, because we would normally, I think, have met up a lot more throughout it.
Maybe the limitations have been good. In a way, they've created something quite unique.
Yeah, but I think we've got so much from it, and I hope you enjoy the book.
Feather lightly, I lean out, over the edge of this graceful place, to contemplate a fall that would make prayers grow thick on my breast, like the heather anchoring me, and growing too breathless, my layerings would bubble and brood beneath cleaving flesh, and I would come undone in all that falling, with half-naked convictions, exposed and unconvinced. I would catch up to the foolery of my own mind, and I would pass myself by, unrecognized, as I fall and break from this graceful place into splintered pieces, strewn across the floor of a distant underworld, never to be gathered, forever scattered into a cruel indifference. How different then to push back from the edge and let life wrap itself back around me, feather lightly. For freely I would fall, if it were not for these wings all around me.